Award-winning broadcast journalist Ed Marshall asks the tough questions you want answered. Informative, soul-stirring, one-on-one interviews about matters that affect our lives in this region we call home. Here now with Conversations is Ed Marshall.
Thanks for joining us. We all know that seaports are important to the world's economy, and Louisiana is a big contributor to that coffer. One port in particular you may not hear a lot about in the news, but it's ranked as the top 7 ports in the United States. This 54-mile port district is known as the Port of South Louisiana on the Mississippi River between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, encompassing the parishes of St. Charles, St. John the Baptist, and St. James. With us is the man that heads up that operation, the Chief Executive Officer and the Port Director, Mr. Paul Mathews. Paul, good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Last time you were here, you were not at the port of, you were not directing the port, rather, of South Louisiana. You were in a different place. And in case our audience goes, oh, I thought, we don't want to confuse people, okay? So Paul, tell us, we understand that back in January, was it?
2021.
21?
Yeah.
You were appointed as the first African-American port director in the history of Louisiana. That must have been a wonderful feeling. Just tell us about how that happened.
Well, it was an exciting feeling, and I felt the weight of it and the responsibility, but the historic nature of it was so significant and exciting time. Well, how it came about, I wasn't even looking for the opportunity to serve in the role, but I recognized that they had put it out there that they were looking for a new port director. So I said, why not? Why not put my hat in the ring and see what opportunities that are out there? I love Plaquemines Port. I loved all the work that we did. But you know, sometimes when God speaks to you and you look at opportunities, you have to take the chance and see what he does. And so in January of 2022, actually, I started the role. And I've been in the business for about 10 years, and it's been an amazing ride. First, I started off at the Port of New Orleans in January of 2012. And I served as their community affairs manager for almost 5 years.
It took us on many cutter trips down the river.
Many trips. It was all about telling the story of the Port of New Orleans, but also telling the story of the ports along the lower Mississippi River, including Port of St. Bernard, Port of Plaquemines, the Port of South Louisiana, and Port of Baton Rouge, because those 5 ports make up one of the largest port complexes in the world, with almost $500 million, 500 million tons of cargo each year. 6,000 ships going up the river, 6,000 ships going down the river each year. An interesting thing is that half of that cargo comes through the Port of South Louisiana, and half of those ship calls come through the Port of South Louisiana, where we move over 238 million tons of cargo annually. We are the largest domestic trade port in the United States, second largest energy transfer port in the U.S., second largest port by tonnage in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, that blew my mind. You know, when I did my research, I was like, well, Paul is really in high cotton. I mean, you're doing some major stuff here. Well, let's get back to you. Tell our audience where you're from, and you know, how did you end up in this area?
Well, I grew up just down the street, uptown. I'm a New Orleans kid through and through. I'm a Ben Franklin High School graduate. Graduated from Tulane University and received my MBA from the University of Louisiana, Lafayette. So I'm a Louisiana boy through and through.
Through, yeah.
So for me, getting into this industry was very interesting. I was actually living in Alexandria, Louisiana when I completed my master's program at UL Lafayette and was trying to get back home. And so I met Gary Lagrange, and I told him, hey, I just want to get back home. Is there opportunities possibly at the Port of New Orleans or within the industry? And he made it so where I got an internship, and then they eventually hired me on and showed me around, showed me the ropes in the different operations and commercial side and finance.
And let me tell you, if you haven't met Gary Lagrange, he's one of the big community leaders. He and I were together Friday night at the roast of the town for Delgado. Gary is one of the greatest guys that I've ever met. When I was in TV at Lafayette, I met him, and he said, I changed his life. I said, no, you changed my life. Because I would say, my news director would say, we need a story on the port of West St. Mary. I'd call Gary. I said, Gary, what do y'all got going on down there? He says, by the time you get here, we would have dug a channel out into the Gulf of Mexico. But I say that to say that, to give him kudos. And we're going to definitely insert a picture of Gary, because he's a fabulous man and has given so much to this community.
Absolutely.
And so,
absolutely. I don't think there's anybody in the United States that's been a port director where everybody knows him throughout the country.
Right.
He is really the godfather of Louisiana ports, with 40 years of experience as a port director in Louisiana. So he's my mentor, and I would not be in the position as the port director of Port of South Louisiana if it wasn't for him, and also Sandy Sanders, who I served under at the Port of Plaquemines. Those two individuals put me in the rooms and made sure that I was involved in the process every step of the way, and put me in those leadership positions to give me that opportunity to know that I can go on my own and be a leader at a port myself. So I'm very grateful to Gary LaGrange and Sandy Sanders for giving me those opportunities.
And being a first, and I know what it's like being the first African American, because it's you know, you take on that role, and people often see you know, black people not necessarily as a group. I mean, they see us as a group, not as individuals. So that can be kind of weighty, because I've gone through that, you know, in dealing with things in my life as being the first. What has it been like for you?
Well, there's definitely a weight. There's definitely a sense of responsibility, and I embrace that, frankly, because I want to make sure that as I am the first, I won't be the last.
That's right.
And there's a great responsibility that comes with that. And also giving the opportunity to show young black men and women that there's somebody that looks like you in the position, and therefore you can be in that position one day, is really inspiring. So I take that responsibility very seriously, and I embrace it, because we now are in a position to talk about issues that maybe were never talked about before in this industry. In particular, we have to look at procurement, and making sure that small businesses in all of our communities, particularly in the river parishes, St. John, St. Charles, and St. James, that everyone has an opportunity, not exact guarantee result, but opportunity to be able to work with the port. So a lot of that comes with exposure. So we've actually looked at our policies and procedures with vendors, and making sure that everyone, small businesses, DBEs, WBEs, are included in the process. I've made sure that DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is part of our staff culture, is part of our processes and procedures as running the business of the port. So though I have that weight and responsibility, it's an opportunity to use the platform to talk about issues of DEI. In particular, we talk about the businesses that are developing around us. We have $600 million grain elevator that's going to come online hopefully soon, which is going to increase our tonnage by almost 10 million tons, which will increase our exports of grain and feed it in the world.
So you're trying to get to number one.
Try to get back to number one and not have Houston hold it, right? We're always competing with Texas. So our hope is that those jobs that come online, that we can communicate to those businesses that everybody needs to have an opportunity. Every individual who wants a job, and also those vendors have the opportunities, and make sure those people are coming from our communities.
What's really neat is that, you know, it's important as being a first to always give back, and that comes automatically with a lot of people. Of course, you have these young people that you all have down in those areas. I believe they're called Riverworks Discovery.
Yes, so Riverworks Discovery is a national program which goes to ports and allows high school students to come in and visit with the Port Authority and all the potential businesses that they can work with, because there's an opportunity for students to go right out of high school and start a career in the maritime industry. Not everybody's going to go to college. Maybe they can start and get trained and get certified by those companies at 18 years old, and starting out making $50,000 a year, within 5 or 10 years making 6 figures, and they don't have student loan debt. Now, if they want to go back to school, sometimes those companies would even pay for it. But just exposing them to the industry, an industry that's been here, and there's a reason why Port of New Orleans exists, the reason why the city of New Orleans exists, because of navigation.
That's right.
It's the reason why Thomas Jefferson did the deal with Napoleon for the Louisiana Purchase was because of navigation. So as long as people want to buy something and people want to sell it, you're always going to have America's ports.
And a lot of African American young people that don't know that.
Don't know it, haven't been exposed to it. So
and those trades are really important. And I'm on the board of Delgado, and of course, you all work with Delgado on a lot of things with our Chancellor Stibe and Dr. Williams, who does a lot with the trades. Tell us some of that.
Well, Dr. Williams and Dr. Stibe, they do an incredible program at Delgado. Their maritime security program is really top-notch, world-class, second to none. And so a lot of times, our company as a port and some of those other private vendors that are operating on the river will get some of their employees through those programs through Delgado. So we think it's very key that the port authorities and the education institutions work together. And so with Dr. Williams and Dr. Stibe and Dr. Schwab, who's working in maritime security, we do whatever we can to partner with them. But not only Delgado, we work with, try to work with Fletcher Community College. Right. We also work with Nichols State University. UNO has a UNO Transportation Institute. So we believe in a regional approach because we're all going to benefit at the end of the day.
Exactly. And back to your kids, what is it like? Give us an example of when they said that the CEO of the Port of South Louisiana was coming to visit with them for the first time, and you walked in and you looked like them.
Yeah, it was very much an aha moment for the kids. So I like watching that, the eyes kind of light up a little bit, saying, okay, this is different than what I expected. And then at the same time, you have to let them know that you're just like them. You kind of speak to their level and what's going on. And so we had some kids come to the office and they asked some very pertinent questions of me in the role. How do I balance work-family life? How do I make decisions on a daily basis? So as we were in the boardroom speaking to the students, I said, you know what, how about y'all come to my office? And they ran right behind me and we walked in the office. My staff didn't know what was going on. Yeah. And I sat down with them and said, see all these documents, all the paperwork, see the staff that's coming in. They help me make decisions every day. And my favorite part is a couple of students asked if they could sit in my chair. And I said, of course you can. I said, now the goal is I want you to go to school, do what you got to do so that one day you'll be the person in the chair.
I love that. I love that. All right. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more with the director of the Port of South Louisiana, Mr. Paul Mathews. So stay with us. More of Conversations with Ed Marshall is on the way. Stay right here.
Spending 4 years to earn a degree and taking on a ton of debt, that's not for me. My choice is Delgado Community College. I can start my education, then go anywhere. A great career, more education, whatever I want to do. Delgado's been here for 100 years. It's a fully accredited, comprehensive college. It's also a school where people can learn job skills quickly so they can earn more money fast. Don't let anything hold you back. I didn't, and I'm proud to say I'm a student at Delgado Community College. Education that works.
And we're back with more of Conversations. Joining me, of course, is Mr. Paul Mathews, who is the director of the Port of South Louisiana and also the CEO there. And we want to move now into basically talking about the port. I know you have you always have ideas and things that you're churning out. And you're rebranding of the port.
Right.
Talk about that.
Yeah, so when I got there, I thought it was very important that we make sure we're telling our story, telling it the right way. And so we had to figure out, what is our story? Our story is about the river parishes. It's about St. Charles, St. John, and St. James, and being strategically located on the Mississippi River. So we just rolled out a new rebrand at the same time of the ribbon cutting of our brand new building.
Yeah, I saw that. It was real nice.
Right. So we believed that was an opportunity to show that there was a new era at the Port of South Louisiana. And our focus has been regionalism. Our focus has been inclusion, diversity, equity, and making sure that we move in a positive direction on 3 pillars. Number 1, agriculture. We are the agricultural port of the United States. So being on the lower Mississippi River, there are 9 grain elevators, and 7 of them are within the Port of South Louisiana jurisdiction. So 60% of the nation's grain is exported through the lower Mississippi River, feeding the world, feeding China, Japan, Europe, North Africa, Central and South America. And now that we have Ukraine and Russian conflict that's been happening for over a year, there's an even greater demand for America's grain. And so America's farmers are working very hard and using the trade routes through the Port of South Louisiana to feed the world. So Ukraine and Russia were 2 of the top 6 exporters of grain in the world. And so now you have one country that's bombarded and you have another country that has sanctions on it. So issue 5,900 miles away from the United States is facing us locally right here in our community, and it's because of what is needed in the rest of the world. So it's our responsibility to make sure from a navigation standpoint that we are feeding the world through our local economy, which is agriculture and the assets of the port. And that's why it was so important that the state and the federal government got together to deepen the river to 50 feet, to get the larger ships, the deeper ships, into our port. So for every 1 foot of depth that you increase, a ship can come in, it actually increases the value by $1 million per foot. So those 5 extra feet really changed the game for us because we connect to 31 states and 2 Canadian provinces on the Mississippi River and its tributaries. So as we feed the world, we got to make sure that we have the right infrastructure. So we're pushing major infrastructure projects where we're increasing our docks, increasing major assets and facilities, and we're very thankful for Congress and the Biden administration for passing the Infrastructure Investment Act. And so there's a lot of competitive grants out there that we're working to procure.
You all have one. That I understand.
Well, we have over $1 million in port security grants, which actually went towards a GIS system to map out our entire jurisdiction, and just as important, to make sure we are ahead of the game when it comes to cybersecurity.
And that's what I want to get to next, because when you're importing, you're bringing all this stuff in, you have got to have a serious security mechanism built in.
Yes, and ports around the country are focused on that. And matter of fact, I had a meeting just a few months ago with the Pentagon to very much discuss how we can protect our ports, and particularly the 2nd largest port in the Western Hemisphere, from any kind of attacks. Because we have all these different assets on the river, and because we're focused on feeding the world, but also fueling the world with 100 million tons of chemical products each year, our livelihood is at stake if we are being threatened from a cyber standpoint. So we've really put an emphasis on that as well.
Yeah, and I would think that you have to. And you're one of the only ports I know that actually has an airport?
That's correct. So we're one of only 2 ports in the state with an airport. So
tell me about that. I mean,
what it does, it allows for us to fully be multimodal.
Yeah.
So if you look at our lapel pin that I have today, there's 4 quadrants that represent different types of movements of cargo. River being the water, the roads, the rail, but also air representing our airport and allowing us to have air cargo. So those 4 modes of transportation allows the Port of South Louisiana to show that we're a better way to cargo. And so we're working right now with the federal government to expand our runway, to extend it from 5,100 feet to 6,500 feet. When we're able to do that, we're able to get larger planes in to bring in more cargo through our port. So all within 1 zip code, you can move cargo by water, road, rail, with 3 Class 1 rail lines right there, or even air. So any way you look at it, we're a better way to cargo.
And you also have some big news. For years, Avondale Shipyard, was the biggest employer in this area. And now that's you're pursuing that with vigor.
Yeah, so we've entered an agreement with T. Parker Host, who are the current owners and operators of the facility, and we're looking at purchasing the property where T. Parker Host will continue to serve as the terminal operator, and the port would own all the assets. And that public-private partnership will allow for the opportunity to maximize what Avondale can be. Because it's no longer a shipyard, it's a fully functioning terminal each and every day. So the purpose of Avondale has changed. But really the comprehensive calling and purpose of Avondale is to grow from an economic development standpoint, grow the community and create jobs. And the Port of South Louisiana, as a political subdivision of the state, in partnership with a private entity, we can do that. We can go after federal dollars to add additional berths to the site. We're focused on potential green energy to come to that site, which are good paying quality jobs. Also food processing, and looking at advanced manufacturing and distribution centers at Avondale. And that will be a nexus for all the ports within the region to grow. We also see it as an opportunity to enhance infrastructure within the region as well, whether it's the LA 31-27 expansion, getting Peters Road bypass done, having more efficiencies with the rail on the West Bank. Because if we own Avondale, we can create a West Bank corridor that will change the game for the West Bank long term, from Plaquemines all the way up to Ascension. So the legislature right now is looking at our ports and talking about having a regional focus and getting out of our jurisdictional focus. And Avondale could be that catalyst to do it.
I think it will be. We'll see. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we want to talk environmental. You all are very, very environmentally conscious. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. So stay with us. This last segment, we're going to wrap up our conversation, unfortunately, with Paul, but we'll have him back. So stay right here.
Spending 4 years to earn a college degree and taking on a ton of debt, that's not for me. My choice is Delgado Community College. I can start my education and go anywhere. A great career, more education, whatever I want to do. Delgado's been here for 100 years. It's a fully accredited comprehensive college. It's also a school where people can learn job skills quickly so they can earn more money fast. Don't let anything hold you back. I didn't, and I'm proud to say that I am a student at Delgado Community College. Education that works.
Well, welcome back. We're talking with the director of the Port of South Louisiana, Mr. Paul Mathews. Paul, tell us, people are always concerned too with growth about environmental concerns. Talk to us about that.
Well, from a port standpoint, we believe that industry and being environmentally friendly go hand in hand. The world is changing, trade routes are changing, and businesses are having different philosophies. And what we're seeing in the boardrooms of major corporations is that they want every single part of the supply chain to be green. And what does that mean? That means reducing or eliminating their carbon footprint. And ports are a part of that. And so we've worked very hard to get into a position that we are trying to help minimize the carbon footprint within our jurisdiction. In particular, we partnered with GNO Inc. and was able to receive a federal grant which will allow, for the first time in the nation, second time in the world, e-methanol bunkering. So there will be towboats in the river that will not be using the standard fuel, but the new e-methanol fuel that has a zero carbon footprint.
Wow.
So what that can do is be really the pilot for more bunkering within our jurisdiction, which could attract more ships to come to our port compared to others who are not using this type of bunkering system with this new type of fuel, e-methanol. So we know LNG, CNG, ammonia, hydrogen, all these different types of energy processes are out there. We want to be ready for all of them, right? And we want to make sure that with this e-methanol bunkering facility that we will have, it will show the rest of the world that Louisiana is prepared to be environmentally friendly on the river. And so we've also talked to a lot of the facilities that are looking to develop to make sure that they're using the best technology up to the standards of Louisiana DEQ, U.S. Department of Equality, Environmental Equality, so that it's efficient, but it's also making sure that from an environmental standpoint, our communities are safe.
And what a nice thing to be the first at something good,
right,
coming out of Louisiana.
Right.
I do want to talk to you before we run out of time about tonnage, because tonnage is very important in terms of numbers for ports. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm proud to say that we've actually had our first growth in tonnage since 2016. We had a 10% growth in tonnage.
And when we say tonnage, for our audience that may not know what tonnage.
Well, it's the weight of the cargo that moves through the port. So the weight of the grain, the oil products, the project cargo, these multi-ton huge items that you will see on the road where they have an escort to come in and out of. All that tonnage is being used, those raw materials are being used to create additional products that we buy each and every day in the stores.
So as I'm remodeling my house right now, my wife's Whirlpool tub is somewhere on the river.
somewhere. But that tonnage and having more tonnage makes sure that companies stay in Louisiana, and that makes sure it's good quality jobs stay in Louisiana, and as a result, our people stay in Louisiana and not in Texas or Florida.
Right. So we keep our people here, and of course that goes into when you keep people, that means that more homes are bought, and we have a serious shortage of housing in this area. And with these new jobs, I mean, these are jobs that people are coming into that are significantly much more in terms of pay, especially in trades.
Well, the average salary is between $70,000 to $80,000, and that's actually might have increased because of inflation over the last few years. So these are good quality jobs that somebody can come in, raise a family, and really have a better quality of life for their community.
Yeah. We're almost out of time. I always tell my guests, any parting words that you'd like to leave with our audience about the Port of South Louisiana?
Well, Port of South Louisiana is growing, and we are the largest port in the state. We're very much focused on regionalism, but I think people need to recognize that when it comes to feeding and fueling the world, it's because of the operations within the river parishes at the Port of South Louisiana.
Okay, and we're glad that Paul Mathews, an African-American who is from the New Orleans area, is a big part of that. So we thank you for being here. Do come back. Do want to get out there and go down the river with you, and like we did in the past. I think that'll be a lot of fun. You can show me a lot of the things that are happening.
Sure, we'll get you on a boat.
Okay. All righty. We're out of time. Thanks for being with us. As we always tell you, do something good for yourself. Do something good for someone else. And thank you for spending some time with us. And until the next show, stay in peace, not pieces. I'm Ed Marshall, and we'll see you. All right.